Goedemiddag iedereen. Leuk dat jullie deelnemen als webinar over HxDR Cloud Studio. Ik ben Koen van GEODEET. Voor de mensen die ons niet kennen, wij zijn verdeler van Leica laserscanners voor zowel België als Nederland. Vandaag geven we jullie geen opleiding, maar wel een introductie over HxDR Cloud Studio. De meesten onder jullie zullen Cyclone Register kennen, de software om scandata te importeren en verwerken naar de juiste bestanden. Nu is er ook HxDR Cloud Studio, een cloud platform die scandata kan uploaden en verwerken. We zijn ook zeer vereerd om Paul Burrows aan jullie voor te stellen. Hij gaat jullie een introductie geven in het Engels. Paul staat aan het hoofd van software development bij Leica. Als je vragen hebt, stel ze gerust tijdens het webinar. We vinden het heel fijn als jullie actief meedoen. Dat maakt het nog leuker en veel leesbaarder. So Paul, I'm going over to you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this webinar session. I'm just going to click through to the next slide so we can kick off. So yeah, my name is Paul Burrows. I'll do a brief introduction to myself in a second, but thank you, Rob, for the introduction. I've got some housekeeping rules in a second, so we'll get to those shortly. But obviously, if you have to disappear halfway through, do not worry. You'll have a recording of this session available. But today we want to talk about Reality Cloud Studio, powered by HxDR, which is all about your digital reality data realized within this platform. And Reality Cloud Studio has been released for about a year now, but over the past few months, we've started to bundle the solution with sensors. So, if you're buying equipment from GEODEET, then you will have 1 or a 3 terabyte subscription bundled in, and we'll talk about that today. But obviously, if you have already existing hardware, then you can purchase your subscription directly through GEODEET, which will have the contact details at the end of the session. So Reality Cloud Studio, it's an all-in-one platform. It's very, very easy to use, as you'll see today from the session. There's a lot of automation and powerful cloud tools in there, such as automatic registration, meshing, collaboration tools, and of course, primarily with reality capture data, we capture a lot of data, so it's all about storing that content and making it easily distributable to internal and external stakeholders. And really, we are making huge use of the power of the cloud as we go forwards. So today we're going to have a brief introduction. We'll then talk about data sharing, what that looked like, in the past, the present, and into the future with Reality Cloud Studio. A very, very brief overview of the technology in terms of HxDR, the platform that's Hexagon Digital Reality. The core benefits of Reality Cloud Studio, getting your data into the platform, some demonstrations of some key features in the platform, but we are really it's going to be a very light touch today in terms of what we're able to show in the time we have, and then obviously contact details and offers that we can discuss. So first up, my name is Paul Burrows. You may have seen me before, whether that's on LinkedIn or social media or laser scanning forum. I'm the Principal Software Solutions Manager for Reality Capture, and at the minute, one of my main tasks is driving the adoption and basically the market development of Reality Cloud Studio. So a large portion of my time is going to not only kind of the testing and ideation and working with the product management team, but also getting this to market and getting it in the hands of customers. And thank you very much for joining this session today. So in terms of housekeeping, you will receive a copy of this event because our host is recording the session. So we'll have an accurate copy of this that you can watch over and over again as reference as you need it. If you've got any questions, use the chat box, the Q&A box in the right-hand side in the GoToWebinar panel, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. We'll have the opportunity to ask some questions at the end of the session too. And please, this really does help us if you can complete the exit survey. Even if you have to leave halfway through, if you can complete the exit survey, we'll ask you about, did you enjoy the session? What would you like to see more of? And of course, would you like someone to contact you to discuss more of what you've seen today? So let's talk now about kind of the past and the present workflows and how that changes with Reality Cloud Studio. Now, this is just a very, very basic overview of this. You may have all these sensors, you may have one of these sensors, you may have third-party scanners that you use to capture the environment around you. Now, with our devices, perhaps you're using the BLK Live app, or you're using Cyclone Field 360, or with Pegasus Field, for example, to control those devices in the field, to start doing some pre-registration, to start collecting geotags and building up that data. And then typically that data gets pushed through to, whether that's your internal, registration team, or perhaps if we talk about building construction, it's a VDC team, and they're using Cyclone Register 360 to pull that data together, register that data, and then push it on downstream, or maybe they're doing some processing in Leica Cyclone 3DR. And then you would typically maybe ship a hard drive or a USB drive, or maybe use something like Google Drive or Microsoft OneDrive to share that data with other partners, to other internal teams. And then, of course, you would need to share that data onto customers, subcontractors, vendors. And then you start asking, what software are we using? There's different formats out there. Has someone requested a recap file? Do you want to send an LGSX file? So the process can become quite disjointed. And I know one thing that is quite concerning to some of our customers is kind of losing control of that data once it gets shipped on a physical hard drive over to an end user, or they download that. So this is where Reality Cloud Studio can really benefit. So in the workflow of Reality Cloud Studio, you have all the devices. You can actually go from the field to the cloud with some of those devices using the apps, but you can, of course, go through the standard workflow of taking that data into Register 360 and uploading from there. But let's say we do go from the field to the cloud. Once that data is in Reality Cloud Studio, like I said, you can take advantage of auto register, auto meshing, secure collaboration. You can add people to your account, for example, external contractors to your account, or you can send single URL links out to viewers who don't have an account if you want to. And of course, you can measure and annotate and create tours, and we'll talk more about that today. So you can then have very, very simple viewing via a browser device, whether that's on an iPad, on a PC, and you can share that out to all of your contractors, whether that's your stakeholders, whether that's internal teams or your customers. The other thing as well, of course, is we can actually bring IFC data in. So if your subcontractors have generated IFC, for example, that can come back into the platform. But you can see here we also talk about exporting meshes, exporting point clouds, or just viewing in the browser. So a user could, if you gave them the right permissions, actually go in and download a point cloud from the platform if you wanted them to. If you just wanted them to view the tours and the annotations you created, that's also completely within the scope of the platform. But one thing that we can also do with Reality Cloud Studio is we can stream that data directly into, in the first instance, Cyclone 3DR. So that streaming already works. So if you're a Cyclone 3DR user and you're using that for deviation reporting, clash management, BIM progress reporting, all those things, those analytical tasks, you can stream the data from Reality Cloud Studio into 3DR. And we will have streaming into CloudWorks, our CloudWorks products, coming later in Q3. So if you're used to using CloudWorks for AutoCAD or MicroStation, we have one coming for Unreal, ArcGIS, all those solutions will be able to stream data directly from Reality Cloud Studio. So it really does become a central hub for all of your data sets. So HxDR, what is HxDR? So HxDR in essence is a platform that we have built, so Hexagon Digital Reality, that is technology from all across the organization, and we built this incredibly powerful cloud solution, and then we're going to build these vertical applications on top. Now, the first of those applications I'm going to talk about today is obviously Reality Cloud Studio, but you can see some of the other products that already sit directly within the HxDR ecosystem. So you might have heard of LockLab Cloud, which is a solution for generating BIM very simply by upload videogrammetry data or video data and scan data, and it will send back 3D model information. GeoCloud works with our total stations and GNSS sensors to share 3D models and survey data backwards and forwards from the field to the cloud as well. And then you've got things like the HxDR data store, which is creating or storing, I should say, data from our airborne sensors to build up 3D and 2D maps from the air as well. So, but Reality Cloud Studio is what we'll focus on today. Now, Reality Cloud Studio is made up of three major things: Reality Drive, Cloud Studio, and the collaboration space. So Reality Drive is what it says, it's just kind of like a Dropbox or a OneDrive for all of that data, where you can share that data and store that data. Cloud Studio is then when you start doing cool stuff with the data. So whether that's meshing, registration, visualizations, limit boxes, annotations, measurements, all that kind of stuff, it happens within the Cloud Studio space. And then we have the collaboration space. We talk about sharing those links. So we can share individual links down to a particular point within the asset. So if we've created a limit box, we can share that link. If we've created a tour, we can share the link, or we can share a link to the whole asset and share that to another user. So there's a lot of collaboration that can happen, and that's really where a lot of the power comes from with Reality Cloud Studio. Okay, so let's just jump into some of the workflows. Obviously, we upload our data. We discussed how we get data into the cloud. There's also an application called HxDR Data Flow, which sits on your desktop computer and allows you to manage the upload into the platform, as well as being able to drag and drop directly into the browser or go from the field to the cloud as well. So there's multiple ways to do that. You can register your data. Now, you may be already registering your data in Cyclone Register 360. You probably would continue to do that, but there is some registration capability within Reality Cloud Studio. You can also mesh, so maybe you're used to using another third-party meshing solution or Cyclone 3DR, but now we have a one-click operation to create meshes directly within the cloud, within Reality Cloud Studio, so we'll show you that today. And of course, showcasing your reality. So once you've built out this data set, your asset with all of your links, your geotags, your tours, you can share that and you can showcase your data. So it just makes it much, much easier to communicate with your stakeholders. So in terms of uploading data, you can see here, this is just one way of doing it. This is with the BLK Live app. So if you've got BLK 360, a To Go, an Arc, To Fly, for example, you can connect with the app and you can then upload that data directly to the platform if you wanted to. And I said before, you can of course go from the desktop to the cloud. So if you've got Reg 360, you can create an LGSX file and then you can drag and drop that, or you can send that via the HxDR data flow directly to the platform. We also accept third-party data, E57, LAS. We also take IFC information in there as well. So there's lots of different formats that work within the platform. But the key thing as well is the connectivity to the ecosystem. So if you do have some of these BLK devices and you have a compatible app, then you can push that data directly up into the cloud from the field. So that's actually really, really useful if you've just you've got maybe stakeholders around the world or stakeholders around the country, and you can push this data directly back to the cloud, and everyone can view that pretty much instantaneously. And you can also then start to trigger your automatic meshing or your registration in the cloud once you've done that. So it's a really nice workflow, and we'll look at some of that today. So this here shows you, in fact, that field to cloud workflow. On the left-hand side, this is the BLK Live app working in conjunction with the BLK 360, the new BLK 360. And what you can see here is just an example where I've gone out and I've collected some scan data of a church, my local village. I think I did about 22 setups or something in total eventually, and then push this data directly from the app to the cloud. So what happens is all that data from the BLK 360 gets synced directly to your app. So it's all resident on your app. And then you just connect to Reality Cloud Studio and send it up. So this is the process now. On the right-hand side, you can see here we have this RCS upload option. So we click RCS upload, and obviously we would then put in all our credentials. And once we've done that, it would take us to our projects, and then we can choose the location where we want to store that data. So you can see all the projects that I've got listed on my instance. And I'm just going to create a new upload, call it church, click save, and then that will push that from the device. Now, obviously pushing that data, that will all be dependent on how fast your connection is. So if you've got a very fast Wi-Fi or nice 5G connection, then that will push that data up into the cloud and we can start working with that data. The benefits of using this method in this particular use case is that we can also do some automatic registration in Reality Cloud Studio as well. Okay. So I talked about data format. So obviously, I said before, B2G files, raw B2G files from the BLK to Go, To Fly and Arc go into the system, LGS, LGSX, E57. Ones I didn't mention, we can upload meshes. So OBJ meshes and GLB meshes can go straight into the platform as well. And then later in the year, we'll have the ability to combine all those data sources into what we will call scenes. So you'll be able to drag and drop, LGS files and IFC files and display them all in the same space, which is going to be really, really nice. And of course, as I said, it operates as a reality drive. So even if you can't display an asset for some reason, so for example, at the minute we don't display DWG, but you can upload a DWG. You can upload a RAF file from Register 360. You could upload a doc file and put it in there. So you can still use it like a standard storage space. Where you can put your project information as well, even if you can't necessarily view all that data. So let's quickly jump to, I want to show you HxDR data flow. So I'm just going to open up a data flow. So let's just quickly relaunch the application while that's doing that. There you go. So there's data flow. I'm just going to open this up. So data flow is an upload manager. And you can see here, I've already uploaded some files and you can see the location. I've got my information down here. so I can switch user to a different account if I needed to. But within the menu, I can go to projects or I can go to upload manager. So we're in the upload manager now, which is showing us everything that has been completed, and I can clear all those out if I wanted to. But if I go to projects, this will now show me all my projects on my instance. So you can see here I've got various different projects. I'm going to go into this public demo dataset one now. So this is, just to reiterate, this is an application. This isn't looking at the data itself now. So these are all the projects, but I would obviously want to add an asset. Now, if I click add asset, I can then navigate to one of my data sets. So I could go in here, for example, I could find an E57 or an LGS. Let's go in here and find an LGSX file. And I could then press, I'm just going to move this out of the way because you can't see that, 1 second. And then I would just press open. And then that would now start the process of uploading that data into the platform. There you go. So you can see there now, if I go to the upload manager, you can see that's 23 gigabyte file. It will give me an estimate. It's showing how much is uploaded already. And if I had multiple files, I'd actually be able to drag and drop the order of those. If I had one that was particularly important, I can of course pause that. So I can stop that because I don't really want to be uploading that because I already have that in the data set. But if I wanted to, I could also cancel it. So if I just now press stop, that's now stopped, and that stopped the upload. But what the benefit of using HxDR data flow is that even if the internet connection is disrupted, it will continue when the internet connection comes back. So, you know, you might have a 100 gigabyte file. You don't want to get to 99 gigabytes and it crash out if you were doing it through the browser and lose all that progress. So this is why we have the HxDR data flow app, which is completely free of charge. Now, one really nice feature, actually, if we go into the projects tab from data flow, and if we go to this public demo data folder again, what's really nice, if I clicked on any one of these now, if I click on this first one, for example, I can't open it within Dataflow because there's no visualization, but what it will do is actually allow you to open it directly in your system browser. So I press confirm, and that now opens that asset directly within Reality Cloud Studio, and then that will load the mesh directly in, and that's now just going to load as I'm talking. So that's a nice little feature of HxDR data flow. So there's multiple ways to get data into the platform. HxDR data flow is just one of them, but I like it. You know, it's like if you're used to OneDrive or Dropbox or Google Drive or whatever, it just does it in the background. Doesn't take up any system resources as such, or it doesn't, you know, take up a license, and then your data would just appear in the platform. Okay, so that is data flow. So let's just jump back into the presentation. Okay, so in terms of registering, I'm going to show you this live in a second, but here you can see you've got some B2G data from a BLK to go. And all you do is you click your scans, you click auto register, and it goes off and it creates the auto registration. Now, it won't be that quick, that's some marketing magic, but there now are your 4 scans that have been created, they've been brought together using that registration algorithm. But as part of the automatic registration, not only is it quick and easy, you can see there's 3 scans which are just brought together, again, some B2G data. We also have the ability to clean the data as well. So you'll actually remove a lot of the noise of if you've got people walking around or you've got cars in there. When we bring the registration together and do the meshing of that data, the noise will actually be cleared out. So let's click on my demonstration button, and that'll take us to our folder view so we can have a look at those same scans. So here's those 4 scans that we just looked at. I'm just going to open a single B2G file just so you can see. So there's a single B2G file, and this has been meshed, but this is, if I zoom in, you start seeing that streaming. There's your B2G file. But obviously there's multiple scans here that we want to bring together. So all I do is I just click on all of these, or if I just don't click on any of them and click auto register on the top right hand side here, it will pick up all those files, and you can give it a name. So you could just say Leve, for example, and then you would click auto register and it would go off and it would create that. Now that will depend on the size of the files, it will depend on the complexity of the registration, but what you'll end up with is this here. So here's one I did earlier. So if I just click on this file, this now is four of those scans all automatically registered together, and we've just created a mesh view. So I'll just wait for that to stream in. But what you will also see with this data set is if I go back to the point cloud view, you'll see all the noise. So you'll see all the noise of all the people, and I can highlight that actually by putting on, so let's put it in the default visualization mode so you can see that noise much more clearly. And then if I go to the mesh mode, all the noise has now disappeared. Okay, so that's one really cool feature of the, not only of the automatic registration, but also the meshing. Now, There's another way of registration, and I'm going to show you that by going back to the main view. And this is if you have uploaded from a BLK 360 directly from the field to the cloud. So you can see here we've got that church example that you just saw that I was working through. And I'm now just going to, I can click on all these individually if I want to, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the auto register button, and it will pop up with a display, and it will show you all the files that it's collected from that folder. Okay, so it's picked up all the files, but the critical one is this top one, which is a JSON file. Now that JSON file contains all the viz information, and that's the pre-registration information that is collected by the BLK 360. You know, and similarly, if we'd done this with an RTC 360, with Field 360, we'd have that same JSON file. It would have the viz information. Now, once we're happy, we just press auto register, and that will go off and now register. Now, at the minute, we don't have registration reports. We don't have the ability to fix registrations if there's something that's broken, but that is all forthcoming. But it really is incredibly simple. And then that asset, I've actually already uploaded that asset, and we'll look at that later as part of one of the other one of the activities. So that is registration. You've seen B2G, the E57, super simple, but the critical point here is obviously that this information has got the viz data and you've uploaded it from the field to the cloud. So there's a specific caveat there, but yeah, it's good to know, and it's pretty powerful. So we'll look at that in a second. Okay, so in terms of meshing, so you can see here, here's a BLK to go data set. So you may have used BLK to go before. You know, it's quite sparse in terms of points, depending on obviously how fast you've walked. We can generate the mesh, choose the mesh settings, and then that will go off and create the mesh view. And then what you would now end up with is a much nicer textured view of that data set. And I've got a really nice one actually that I can show you that we've done previously. So this is what I was saying about the automatic meshing. You do the meshing, you do the cleaning. So you can see the top one, that Jackson Square data set, and the amount of noise. This was this was fully populated with people walking around. It's a big tourist attraction in New Orleans, and it's cleaned up all of that data automatically. So that's a really nice bonus of the meshing step. So there's some nice images here. So these are all directly from Reality Cloud Studio, and particularly that second one, the level of detail is really, really impressive. And in fact, we've just released a new version of the meshing algorithm. So the meshing is now even better than it is in these screenshots, which were probably taken 2 or 3 months ago now. So let's jump into a demonstration of just how we go about the meshing. I'm just going to close a few of these tabs off now, so we've not got too many things in the background. So here we have, I'm in this folder and I've called it meshing because I just like to organize this. This one is already completed, and we'll go to that in a second. But if I click on this asset here, I'm going to open it up, you'll see that there is no mesh. So if I zoom in down here, I'm going to go right in as close as I can. That's streaming in. That is a point cloud, okay? And there is no mesh associated with that. I mean, it's a really nice point cloud, and it's been really nicely done, but perhaps you want the mesh. Now, if I click here, you can see there's no mesh. I can generate the mesh from there. So that's option 1. Option 2 is from this asset details panel, and I can say generate there. Or if I go back again to the original tab, or the initial a card, let's call it. So I click on the 3 dots. I can also generate mesh from here. Now, if I click generate mesh, it will then come up, and it will allow us to choose the sensor that we used. And if it came from, maybe it's come from a third-party product, you can always click generic. But if you know, for example, that it's coming from another terrestrial laser scanner that's got point cloud scan positions and panos, much like an RTC, you could use this setting and still get a good result. But these are tuned to these devices. So in this instance, we used RTC 360, and then you would click mesh and off it would go. Now, I just want to show you now. So we click mesh. This is the mesh one. I'm just going to open that up. Now that should open up in the mesh view by default. And if I zoom in, you'll see very quickly, it looks a little bit sparse, but then very quickly, the full resolution mesh has now streamed straight into view. So that the benefit of using the mesh as well is that it's about 1/10 the size of the original point cloud. So if I click here, you can see this point cloud is about 9 gigabytes. The mesh is about just under 1 gigabyte, if I remember rightly. So it's much, much smaller. It's much faster to stream. And it's really nice to actually just start walking around and looking at the data. So that is how we generate a mesh. And we will be looking at how we improve that as we go forward in terms of giving people different options. Maybe you want a higher resolution or a lower resolution. But for now, it's very much one click, and that's the result that you get. So that's meshing. Okay, so now we've got showcasing your reality. So this is something super simple. We're going to look a little bit more in detail actually, but this is just one thing that you can do really, really quickly with an asset, is just create an animation. And here we've only used a couple of cameras, but you can choose the duration, you can choose the look and feel, you can save that, you can actually, you can share that link directly to someone, and of course you can even record that and generate an MP4 file directly within the platform too. So in terms of visualization, obviously, ideally you want to be uploading data with color because it just looks fantastic, especially, what we do to the color in the platform. Everything has a nice pop to it. Everything is boosted, and we can also manually tweak the saturation and the brightness in real time within the view to give you the nicest possible outlook on your data. So what we're going to do now is jump into that. We're going to jump into this asset, which is what I said, the church. So you can see what I've done now is I actually created a link then directly to the tour. So what I did is I generated a link to the tour. So when I click that link in my presentation, it's taken me directly to the starting point of the tour that I've created. Now, what you can see here is the result of the auto registration of that data from the BLK 360 of the church that I did that one lunchtime, so 22 setups or so. Now I'm just going to turn it onto what we call vivid mode, so I've got a nice background sky now, and it's given a bit of a color boost to all the data. But if I now press play, I'm now in the tour that I've already created, and obviously this is just super simple, just a couple of positions that we've selected around that data set. Now the benefit is we can can go in and edit this, we can change the duration, we can change the smoothness, and of course we can record it out. But that took next to no time to generate that. It's literally just moving from scan position to scan position. And of course, like I said, you can share it. So that link that I used took us directly to that tour. We hit play, so anyone in your organization can now start looking at that data. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to probably create another one, but I just wanted to show you, if you wanted to record that, you could click record. You could then choose the resolution and the frames per second. You would click record and it would go off and it would generate the MP4, and you can download that directly to your computer. So that's something you can do. But let's, for argument's sake, let's go back to the tours panel, and I'm just going to show you how quickly you can do that in here. So this is that meshed asset, as I said before. Unfortunately, I didn't use high dynamic range imagery, so I've got a little bit of whiteness here, but the imagery down below is really cool. But if I wanted to create a tour now, all I would do is say add tour, and you can see I've got various automated ones. So for example, I could click helix and it would go off now, and if I just press play, here we go, we've got this really crazy kind of helix tour that's been generated automatically. I'm just going to say cancel. I'm just discard those changes, and I'm just going to do something really basic. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to the floor level, and I'm going to put it in first person mode. So I'm in this fly mode. So now I'm just walking around as though I am a person in that site. I'm going to say add tour, and all I do is I just click the scan positions. So let's just move around with my keys. I'm going to say position there, and another position over here. And maybe as we kind of climb around the tower and go around above the trees. Okay, and that's it. That's all we do. And so I've just created now 5 viewpoints, and I'm just going to say, you've got smoothing here, so we can create we can smooth the path accordingly if we want to. We can create a circular path. If we wanted to do a loop around the whole thing, we can change the duration. But if we were happy with that, I can now just press play, and I've got my 10-second visualization directly in the platform. Now, what's really nice is, as I said before, we can render that out, but we could also very, very quickly share that with someone. So if I say save, I'll just say GEODEET in here, GEODEET 1, and now I'm going to share this. So I'm going to go back to my tour panel, and you can see I've got GEODEET 1. I can click in here, I can record it, I can edit it, I can edit the information, I can delete it. But if I click copy link, that link now I can then just share over here, and boom, it'll take me directly to the tour. So anyone who is a part of your project will go straight to the starting point location of that tour, and they can view it. So I think that's a really nice feature. So anyway, other stuff that we can do in here, of course, I'm just going to move this around a little bit. So let's go into orbit mode. Okay, so we're going to go into orbit mode and zoom out a little bit. Across the left-hand side, you've got limit boxes. So you can see we've got limit boxes that we've already created. So we've got various floor plans, we've got half sections, All of this, you can just turn any of these on at any point in time, and then we're looking at that data, we can turn it off really, really easily. And they're super easy to create as well. You would just add a limit box. There's your limit box extents, and then we can just pull this, we can just tweak any of these sides down and just create a new limit box accordingly. So if we wanted to do that, we can manually change all the settings down here. We can rotate it by grabbing the corners, and then once we're happy, we would just click save, and then that would be added to the list. So they're really nice. And once, if you select that and that's turned on, all of your animations and everything will now reflect that those limit boxes, but we're going to keep them off for now. Then we've got measurements. So of course I can turn all these measurements on from ones previous that I've done before. Okay, so you can see all the measurements, and if I hover over one of these, you can actually see the information about the measurements, but there's really, really easy to create as well. So I could just go in here and say add measurement. I could do distance, area, or planar. Let's do area, and I can just click I'm just going to do this really crudely around the window area, just for argument's sake. He says, I'm going to pick that one. There you go. Oh, my mouse is playing up. There you go. Let's just finish that off there. There you go. So we'll just say GEODEET 1 again. Okay. So that's saved. So you can do your measurements directly in there. We can turn them on or off really easily as well if we want to. But that's currently being displayed. So they're all being shown directly within the view. And if we want to, we can just go and make those all non-visible, just to make our lives a little bit easier directly within the thing. Another nice feature actually is the ability to add, if I go and do this over here on this stair area here, we've got the ability to add what we call a planar measurement. Now a planar measurement allows you to pick 3 points. I'm going to pick 3 points, and that now will measure down to that plane. So we've created this plane on that horizon, and even if I pick up here, it will actually drill down and it will put the measurement on the relevant point on the plane. So you can see there, as I'm picking, it's still drilling down and putting that measurement on the plane. So that is our plane picking method for measurement. So just double click, so GEODEET 2. Okay, so that's a really nice way that we can create measurements directly within the platform. And of course, they can all be saved and shared as well. So you can copy a link, you can edit those, you can delete those directly from that as well. So I'm just going to hide all those measurements. Geotags, again, really, really simple. They're not quite as fully formed as they are in TrueView or Registry 60 yet. But of course, I can say show all, and you can see all these little geotags now. And I can't yet zoom to them, but I think if I click on one of these, it doesn't let me do it from here, but if I click, no, it's not going to let me zoom to it, but I can click on any one of these and I can get the information for that, of course, and I can go around. And if there's any more additional information, I think one of these around this corner, I said something about maintenance, downpipe needs inspection, for example, storage area, do not enter. So just little bits of information that we've dotted around the scene. Now, one thing that we can do very easily then is just create a new one. So we add a geotag. So we just click on a point. So let's click on this window just here. And we could just say mock Gothic window. I'll put that in the wrong place. Never mind. I'll put it there. Mock Gothic window. And just put a little description in and press save. And there you go. So that geotag is now stored and we've got the information. Now from here, we can hide it or we can copy it directly. So if we wanted to send a link directly to this particular one, I could say copy link. And again, pop it over here. Oops, pop it in here. And there you go. It'll take you, and you've got that access directly to that geotag that's just been created. So you can build up your story around your asset very, very easily. So that's geotags. And then tours we've already looked at, and obviously asset information. You've got all of the information about the asset there. You can see we've got the mesh, the point cloud, the panorama. We've got this notion of labels to allow you to label up the project so you can sort them. And if you want to, you can also very, very easily change the asset name. You can also change the asset cover as well. So the asset cover that we've just seen was just a nice little example of an image. So if we would say, okay, let's update the image. So we'll take an image like that. Let's go take cover image. We could just update the cover image directly and update that, and that updates it for the whole project. So that's super simple. Then over here as well, I just need to move this menu bar down slightly. Across the top, obviously you've got your visualization modes. You've got your default visualization modes. You've got vivid, which we're just showing you. You've also got white, which is quite cool. We can actually tweak that to bring it so you've got a very nice view of the underlying mesh that we've used there as part of that visualization. And then on the right hand side, you've got obviously all your navigation tools down here. So reset view, fly, orbit, panorama, which is quite nice. If you click panorama, it takes you straight to the closest panoramic image. And then of course you can jump through like you can with the likes of TrueView or Reg 360. You can jump to each of those locations really, really easily. And you can still see all the geotags as well that we've put within the data set. And at any point in time, if we press escape, that takes us straight back into the mesh 3D view and we're away from the panoramas. But yeah, again, by pressing that button, it will just jump you to the straight one, or you can just click on one of these and it will take you straight into the panorama. So lots of nice navigation tools. In terms of settings in here, you've got various effects for the visualization. Like I said, in real time, you can tweak the contrast, the brightness, the saturation to make that more natural, or however you want that to look. If you're using the point cloud view, you can change the point size, and you can also change it when you want it adaptive, or you can scale that up and down. But if you're using the mesh mode, that makes no difference. Outline's quite nice. This is to do with like the cell shaded effect, just to give it a bit of depth. So if I just go outline and say black, okay, and if I now just tweak this, so you say strength, so you can see now, if I change edge detection, everything just now has a little bit more depth because we've got those black lines around all the edges. So not everyone likes that, but I quite like it because it does actually help with the visualization, I think, sometimes. Then you've got your background tools. Obviously, you can change, you can change to any of your background views. You've got the clouds, and we'll look to add some more sky domes in the future, which will be cool, or custom sky domes, which would be fantastic. And then, of course, you've also got the ability to have grid lines, and you've also got background blur. So at the minute, you can see you've got this kind of artistic blur, like a depth of field. You can turn that off, and you can see how that disappears as we change that setting. I tend to use it in disabled now, just because it gives a nice crisp look and feel across the whole data set. But it does look really nice when you're doing videos, because it just gives it a little bit of a cinematic look and feel. Then, of course, you've also got quality. So you can change this in real time. You can choose whatever you want from across the top, these predefined settings. I tend to leave it on high. If we've got point clouds, I tend to leave it on disk, and always have it set just under 3 GB in terms of the GPU usage within the system. And if you're using an iPad, it'll probably use less than that, but it's good to know that that setting is there to control it. And you've also got the ability to change your cursors. So you can switch between the different cursor types. One which I really like is see-through, because as you hover over the surface, you can actually see inside. So if you've got a building with internal wall structures and stuff, you can actually see directly inside the asset, which I think is really nice. And then, of course, another really cool feature is the ability to download content. So if I click this download button, you can download the original data. You can download a point cloud, so you can download a LAS version of the point cloud or a PTS version, or you can download the mesh, and that will currently download as an OBJ file. So they will count toward your quota. We'll talk about that in a second, but that's really useful to know in terms of being able to download data from the platform as well. But only certain levels of users will be able to access that. So I'm just now going to jump back to the presentation. Okay. So let's just have a quick look at the features. So data file and management, hopefully I've discussed that already, but realistically, you're uploading, you're downloading, you have folder structures, you can drag and drop between them. It's very much like you're used to in kind of a Windows or a Mac environment. It's really easy to use. And I think anyone jumping in there should have no problem managing the data. What you do have is the ability to change the users. So in fact, if I go to, there you go, you can see the different types of users. You've got admin, maintainers, employees. There's also a viewer who can do very little apart from take some measurements and view the data that you've shared with them. But of course, there's lots of different ways that you can control access to the platform, which is really, really cool. Collaboration. Now, one thing I didn't show is that this little button, there's a little button actually. Let me just quickly jump back to this because this is really important. If you click here and say share, you can share the whole project with another member of the team, or an external user you might have invited to your account, or you can create a general access link. Now, if you click general access, that will create a URL, and you can then just give that shared asset URL. You can just click that there, and then that will give you a viewer access to that asset. And this person now can't do anything apart from view the asset and see things that you've included. So they can see all your limit boxes, but they can't create them. They can add some measurements, they can see geotags, but they can't create them. and they can see tours, but they can't create them. So that's the benefits of them being able to share that public link directly for an end user. And then, of course, exporting. So you can export the data and you can use it in other platforms. As I just said, you can export, the original data or a LAS or a PTS or a mesh, and you can use that in all manner of industry standard softwares. And then, of course, I mentioned before, we have this streaming. So if you are a Leica Cyclone 3DR user, this is really a really cool and valuable feature. So I'm just going to now jump to Cyclone 3DR. And within Cyclone 3DR, if you are already a user, you can now go to the Reality, so basically a file, Reality Cloud Studio, and it will take your credentials and it will log you straight in. So you just, obviously it's taken my password and my username straight away. Now it's going to log me into Reality Cloud Studio. And now I can choose any of the assets in my project to stream. So I'm just going to go to my primary demo account. I am going to download in fact, I know exactly what I'm going to download. I'm going to download this. There's a really nice BLK to go data set somewhere. I'll go back into my demo account. There you go. I'm just going to, this one's really cool. So this is a BLK to go data set of a small town. And you can see now that's streamed in real time directly into Cyclone 3DR. Okay, that's the whole data set. Now, of course, you can then start doing with it what you want directly in here. So if you wanted to mesh a particular area or you wanted to create, something from this data set, then you can. You've got all the tools within Cyclone 3DR. All you would need to do firstly is just convert that. So you would click on the point cloud. You would say convert from Reality Cloud Studio, choose how many million points. So I know I'm just going to put it, let me just put in 30 million points in there, for example, and just press OK. And that will now go off and convert that data for you to use that locally within Cyclone 3DR. So that is the streaming. So that point cloud now is now natively in Reality Cloud, within Cyclone 3DR, and we can start working with that data directly within the platform, whether we wanted to mesh it, whether we wanted to compare it to a BIM, whether we wanted to do some DTM extraction, noise cleaning, whatever. That file is now within Cyclone 3DR, and we will have that capability in CloudWorks. The streaming capability in CloudWorks will come very soon too. So I think that's certainly useful to see. Okay, so as I said, the planned streaming for CloudWorks is coming very, very soon. And we've been testing it and it works fantastically well. It works like that. It doesn't stream the meshes. We're only streaming the point clouds, but we are working on streaming the meshes into like a Cyclone 3DR, which means maybe then you want to fix the mesh, you want to bond it with another one, you want to create a bridge, you want to clean it, you want to smooth it. All the stuff you then can do in 3DR, you would have access to once that was streaming in. So if you've got this far, or even if you haven't got this far, not a problem. I just want to talk briefly about the product offering. So as I said before, if you have bought a sensor between, let's say, the beginning of March and now, then you will have access to Reality Cloud Studio. If you've bought an RTC, you'll have a 3 terabyte subscription. If you bought one of the BLK products, you'll have a 1 terabyte subscription for 1 year, but you may not have, so you may want to obviously invest. So basically, we price the solution based on usage. The usage is defined in gigabytes, and I'll explain this in more detail in the next slide. And then we sell this in terabytes. So at the minute, we have a 1 terabyte and a 3 terabyte deal. Okay, so there's 2 options. We used to have e-commerce options, but actually the customers kind of, told us that they weren't that interested in the e-commerce options. They wanted to know where they were on a yearly basis, and they wanted, defined pricing structure, which was much easier to understand. So that is exactly what we did. So what we did is we said, okay, based on those 1 and 3 terabyte deals, you will use that quota for your uploads, your processing, and your downloads. So, in the rawest sense, let's say you upload 10 gigabytes worth of data, and then you did auto meshing. Let's say it used 10 gigabytes worth of data then to do the auto meshing. And then you wanted to download that mesh, and that mesh was, 1 gigabyte, that would go against the download quota. So that's the way that we work on that. So once the data is uploaded, there's no more cost there because, excuse me, we have unlimited streaming. So you can give, you could share that data set with 500 external users, and there would be no additional costs. You can have unlimited users on your side. So whether you're a small company with 1, 2 people up to a company with thousands of people, you can have unlimited users within your account. You can have unlimited projects, which is an amazing way to work, to break it down into projects, and then you can assign a customer to a project, and then you get free ongoing storage. So once you've performed that initial upload for a project, there's no more cost. So let's say at the end of year 1, you say, okay, I'm never going to upload anything ever again. The data would reside there, and as long as you paid the subscription, the lowest tier subscription, you would continue to get access. So that's something to bear in mind as well. But there's not many people who have this model like we have. So just think of it, again, you're using your quota against upload, processing, and downloads, and everything below is unlimited. And I think that's that's incredibly powerful from an end user perspective. Now, what I've said today in totality, there's lots of been jumping around into demos, and yes, there is a structure to the presentation, but this slide kind of sums up everything that I have now discussed today. So we have the sensors on the left hand side. We have our field apps in between, acting as a kind of a gap, acting as a portal, I guess, to upload that data to the platform. But we can go, if we want to, we can go into Reality Cloud Studio directly, but we can still go via Register 360. And I think a majority of people still will actually, and generate an LGSX file and take that into Reality Cloud Studio via the HxDR data flow app, for example. And then once that data is there, if a customer has gone to LGSX, they could just drag and drop the LGSX into CloudWorks, or they could drag and drop it into Cyclone 3DR. But the real power comes with the collaboration, the sharing aspect of putting it in Reality Cloud Studio, and then we've got all these things we can create, but we can also then stream the data down into these other applications. So in it's that end-to-end story. Now, the other thing that I really need to hammer home is that this is data agnostic, this platform. If you've got other sensors from other providers, we can get it into the platform. We've already got multiple people, multiple customers now moving from other generation scanners and platform solutions across to Reality Cloud Studio, because a lot of them have maybe Leica as their prime sensors, and then they have some other sensors. We've actually worked with some other third-party companies to improve their export to E57 to make sure that we can consume it correctly, and they've been more than happy to do that. So if you think that you want to get data from other sources into Reality Cloud Studio, then we're more than happy to discuss that with you. So in summary, obviously, we had all the intros, we looked at the data sharing, so what the difference between the old method and the new method with Reality Cloud Studio, that brief oversight in HxDR, the core benefits, so the 3 benefits, the reality drive, the Cloud Studio, and the collaboration space. And then, of course, we talked about getting the data into the platform, whether that's via the field apps into the cloud, whether that's via HxDR data flow, or drag and drop directly into the browser. Then, multiple demonstrations hopefully gives you an oversight, roughly of the platform. And if you need more of a demonstration and more hand holding, then just give us a shout. Myself and the GEODEET team are more than happy to help. And then now we've got the contact details. So if you want to reach out to me, by all means you can. But what I would actually encourage you to do, because this is a webinar in partnership with the GEODEET team, is to contact the GEODEET guys, so Rob and Kern, and they will be able to take you through this further. So Rob and Kern, I hope you're still there. And I hope you can hear me, and I hope that went relatively smoothly. But I haven't actually looked to see whether we've got any questions yet, but I will pop open the open the chat now to see if we have any. But some of them are in Dutch.
Questions?
No, I don't see any questions. So
no,
that's absolutely fine. But if anyone does have a question now and they want to ask it, feel free. We'll stay on for a little while longer. If not, then do not worry. That's fine. There's plenty of places that you can find information. If you search Reality Cloud Studio on YouTube, there's plenty of content. If you go to hxdr.com/Reality Cloud Studio, there's lots of content on there, including access to some demo data sets. But fundamentally, over to you guys now. If you want to close out, Rob and Kern, and if there are no questions, then obviously we can start to wrap up.
Ja, thank you Paul. Dat was very clear. Zoals Paul ook vermeld heeft, is er nu een promo om HxDR te testen bij een nieuwe laserscanner bij ons. Het webinar is ook opgenomen, dus jullie kunnen ook altijd herbekijken. En als je nog meer vragen hebt, nog graag meer informatie over HxDR, kun je ook altijd contacteren via de info@geodeet.be. Bedankt voor je aandacht en Paul, thank you very much.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely my pleasure. And thank you for anyone who attended. And for those who didn't attend and are going to watch this later at their leisure, then if there's any questions, be sure to contact the guys at GEODEET and they can point you in the right direction in terms of pricing and testing and all those other things. Okay.
All right.
Cool. Okay. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
So on that note, we will end the session and look forward to speaking to you very soon.
All right. Thank you.